Well, welcome everyone to this latest episode of Stories for Healing. As you know, this is a project that started back in the late part of October, and now here we find ourselves on the edge of the new year, still going strong. And that's good news because there's lots of stories coming and storytellers from around the world ready and anxious to tell them. It's too bad that we still need them so much, but as storytellers, that's what we do. We tell the stories of healing and growth and reconciliation, and hopefully lift all of us, storytellers included, out of this circumstance. And today I'm very pleased to be able to present the new storyteller to me, David Heathfield. David, please tell us a story.
Well, thank you, Jim, for inviting me. And the story I'm going to tell was collected by Idris Shah, who collected so many wisdom tales from the Middle East. It's a story that I'm sure you've heard before, Jim, and many other people. It's from its collection, The Tales of the Dervishes, and it's the story of Fatima. And I'll tell you at the end why I chose this story, but I'll go straight into it now. Kanya Makan Fikadim as a man long ago. There was and there was not a girl, and her name was Fatima. She lived with her father on the shores of Morocco. Her father was a spinner of rope. He made the strongest, finest rope, and Fatima had learned from him. But now he said to his daughter, I will take my cargo of rope on this ship, and I will sail the Middle Sea to trade. Father, I have learned from you how to spin rope. Now let me learn from you how to trade. And her father could not refuse his clever daughter, so she went on board the ship, and they sailed from island to island across the Middle Sea, until there, off the coast of North Africa, off the coast of Egypt, they ran into a terrible storm. The wind blew hard and furious. The ship rocked from side to side, great crashes of thunder. And Fatima watched as her father, trying to rescue his cargo, was washed overboard and into the sea. And there, in spite of her cries, her father drowned. His daughter, now washed ashore, shipwrecked, found herself stranded on the shore near Alexandria, and there she wandered barefoot. Everything is lost. Why is this happening to me? She wandered along the shore and came to a small community of cloth makers. They worked on their looms, making stout cloth. They welcomed Fatima, the stranger. They gave her food. They gave her a place to sleep, and she remained with them. They treated her with kindness. This was like a new home. And she learned from them the ways of weaving cloth. They made cloth to be used by the ship makers of Alexandria, cloth for the great ships, and theirs was the finest. She watched as they made and built looms. She watched as they worked, and she learned quickly. But just as Fatima felt at home, then raiders came. A slave ship. They took Fatima and carried her across the sea. Oh, Fatima was lost again. She was brought to the great port city of Istanbul. And in Istanbul, she was put up for sale in the market. And as she looked around her, she said again, everything is lost. Why is this happening to me? Fortunately for Fatima, a gentleman was walking through, a maker of ships' masts. He had done well for himself, and he paid to take Fatima to his home, but not as a slave, no. You will be our companion. You will remain with me and my wife. We will look after you, protect you. He took mercy on her. But soon after, his own cargo of masts was lost at sea, and he had lost his fortune. Fatima, I can no longer care for you. You are free to go. I will repay your kindness, said Fatima. Show me how to make masts. I am a good learner. I will show you how to make masts. Thank you, Fatima. And he showed her how to learn the craft of crafting ship's masts. Long lengths of timber were shaped, and she learned quickly. After many months, as many masts has been produced as he had lost, and he said to her, Fatima, I trust you as my agent. Sail with this ship full of masts across the sea to India and beyond. You will be my agent. Well, I am honored, said Fatima, and she thanked that mast maker and his wife. And she set sail on his ship away. And a long time she sailed to the shores of India, and there she began to trade those fine masts that she had helped to make. Well, she did well, she made profit, and she sailed on with the few masts that were left towards the coast of China. But there again a wind blew mightier than before, a worse storm than she had ever remembered, worse than the one where she had lost her father. And there Fatima, she was rocked from side to side, riding on the crest of one wave and dropping down on the next. She remembered what had happened to her dear father, and she lashed herself to one of those strong masts. And as the ship was capsized, she, unconscious, floated with that mast to the shore of China, where she woke safe, but with nothing. And as she stood there all alone, again, everything is lost. Why is this happening to me? At that time in China ruled a great emperor. He was a mighty, powerful ruler. His lands extended in all directions for vast distances. One morning he came to his advisors. Last night I had a dream. In my dream, I saw I had a palace that I could transport with me as I progressed throughout my land. How can this palace be made? Well, his advisors thought, how could a palace be transported? They looked at each other. Has the emperor lost his mind? In my dream, said the emperor, there was a young woman from a distant land who showed how it could be done. Find her. Messengers were sent far and wide, and you know that one of those messengers encountered Fatima wandering near the shore. She was brought to the great palace of that emperor, presented to him. Her name was announced, Fatima. Can you show me how to make a palace that can be transported across the land? And as Fatima stood there, she cast her mind back and she remembered. She remembered that when she had been in North Africa, in Istanbul, how merchants, nomads had traveled with wonderful tents, beautiful tents that billowed in the breeze, finely decorated, fit for a king, fit for an emperor. She said to that emperor, bring for me the strongest rope that you have. Well, the rope was brought, but when Fatima tested it, she said, it is not sufficiently strong. Bring a crop of flax. And when the flax was brought, Fatima began to spin that flax into rope. She showed the emperor's workers how to work that flax into the best, finest rope. It took time. And when the months had passed and enough rope had been spun, Fatima now remembered the cloth. Bring for me the finest and strongest cloth you have. The emperor ordered this, and well, the cloth that was brought, Fatima examined, and she said, it is not stout enough. Bring me wood to build looms. Fatima began to make looms, just as the ones she remembered from near Alexandria, from that community that had taught her. Just as her father had taught her to spin rope, they had taught her how to weave stout cloth. And she wove on that loom and those other looms that were built, and the other workers learned from her. She taught them. And the cloth that was woven was good enough. And when enough had been produced, after more months, she said to the emperor, "Now I need poles, long wooden poles. Bring me the strongest and longest timber." But what was brought was not sufficient. "Cut down the tallest trees in all of China," she said. And now the timber that was brought, she worked. She worked into fine, tall masts. Well, poles, but just like the masts that she had learned to make in Istanbul. And again, she showed her skills to those workers. And when these were completed, after more months, she remembered again those tents. The palace was put together and decorated and billowed gently in the breeze. It was the finest tent she had ever seen. And the emperor was invited, and when he saw that splendor, "Fatima, this is more than I ever dreamed of." He stepped inside, amazed. "This palace will be transported with me across all the lands of China. Fatima, you have done more than I could have imagined. I give you whatever your heart desires. Name what you want." "Great emperor, I have had different homes in this world, but each home I have lost. Here I have been well treated. All I ask is to have a home here for the rest of my days, to teach as I have learned to teach." "Is this all you ask for, Fatima?" "The gift is given. I will have a fine house built for you, and you will remain here. You will continue to teach my people." So Fatima did. She remained in her new home, the home that she had found in China. And she was then and always, and remembered as, a wonderful teacher.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Wonderful telling. Wonderful telling. So, as you suggest, why is it that you chose this story, Dave?
I'm lucky, Jim. I run courses, creative and engaging storytelling for teachers courses, for teachers all around the world on Zoom. I used to do it traveling around. I'm an English teacher as well as a teacher trainer and a storyteller. So I've trained teachers in storytelling all over the world. But these days they will come to me in my room, and more. Well, each course that I run, I give 2 free places to teachers from Gaza in Palestine.
Ah, very good.
I work with a charity based in the UK called the Hands Up Project, where we work with children and teachers in areas in crisis. And most of the people we work with are in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about giving those children and teachers a chance to communicate with people around the world and outside. It's giving them a voice. And Fatima is so resilient.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've never met more resilient people than those children from Gaza.
Yeah.
So that's where I dedicate this story.
Sure. Now, and I'm curious. In the one telling that I can recall, which was quite some time ago, so it could very well be a fault of my memory. I don't remember the teacher element in that. Is that something you've brought to it, or was it there to begin with? Because it certainly fits you and what you're doing.
Thank you for asking that question. I don't think that Idris Shah in the telling in Tales of the Dervishes flags up the notion of teacher, but it's so much there. I mean,
Yeah,
yes, she does. She doesn't make those things on her own. She does
right,
work with the emperor's people
right, right.
to craft those things. But uh, I often tell that story in teacher training,
Yeah, yeah.
and I often tell it if, today, or rather yesterday, I should say, Monday. No, today for you
Today.
is actually is Teachers' Day in Palestine.
Ah, okay.
So that's another reason to tell
Another
that
reason.
story today.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, yeah, and
Teachers' Day just about every day
I was
somewhere
going
in
to
the
say.
world.
Oh dear. Well, thank you so very, very much. Well, folks, another episode of Stories for Healing, and again, we have a lot to learn from these stories. We can not only be taught by them, but we can teach with them. We really, when we're ready to share what it is that we have, uh, we find ourselves enriched by that. And just as Fatima was enriched by her teaching, so can we by sharing stories of healing and just opening our hearts to others. So I want to encourage you to share this story, whether you share it from the YouTube platform or from the Facebook platform. Please share it around, but even more, share your hands and your heart, and help us into a better world. Thanks a lot.